let's get her done. So on Friday, I went in and got some x-rays, and on Monday, I was on the operating table. And it was in my mouth that time. Top roof of my mouth had my soft palate and my hard palate removed on the upper part of my mouth. And I was pretty much on a liquid diet for the next several weeks. And I ended up going from about 178 down to about 162. But it was fairly quick recovery, because the surgery was like right around the last part of May, last day of May or the first day of June. And we were in Florida the end of the month. Only because I'd promised my boys that we would go to Florida if they had saved up enough money to be able to go down there and buy a ticket to go to Disney World. Well, they had saved more than enough money to go, so we went. So this time, let's move ahead now to 2022. I'm on Medicare. So you got to, when you're on Medicare, they want you to have a doctor, and so my doctor wants you to get all these blood tests once a year and these things. And one of the tests he gives us is a PSA test. It doesn't mean public service announcement. No, it's prostate specific antigen. Okay. And if any of you that have had that test, you know what I mean. Well, mine had always been really good, because normal range is between 0 and 4. Mine had always been within that range, usually about 1.8, 1.5, somewhere in there. Well, let me see, I wrote them down here, so I've got them in here, so I know I can give you the specific dates. So on December 8th of 2022, had it done again, it was 5.44. Okay, the doctor says this is something we need to monitor. It's nothing to be concerned about yet. So in June of 23, it had gone up to 6.36. December of that year is up to 6.43. Since it didn't go up that much between June and December, he waited another year. Well, between December of 23 and December of 24, it went up to 8.13. He says, well, now you get to the time when we need to start thinking about going to a urologist. But let's take one more. So in April of 25, it was up to 9.54. No, 9.59. He says, time to see a urologist. So I went and saw the urologist, and she did what urologists do. And she says, yep, you got something up there. You need to go to this was in Niles. She said, you got to go to Lakeland, because they're the ones that operate. And it was Corwell and St. Joe. This is Corwell and Niles where I went. So I go and I visited the urologist there, and she scheduled me for an MRI. That MRI was in June. Sure enough, the MRI showed that there was problems. And then I needed to have a biopsy. But before I did the biopsy, I wanted to do another check on the PSA. But before I did that, I did one more thing. You know, the book of James gives us some counsel, and I think it's a very appropriate counsel. In James chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, it says, is anyone among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anyone cheerful? Let him sing psalms. Is anyone among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the church and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil and oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith will save the sick, and the Lord will raise him up. And if he has committed sins, he will be forgiven. Confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. Well, it wasn't just the elders that I called. There were some specific people that I wanted them there, and, you know, some of them were women. And so because I had some things that I needed to make right with a couple people. And I wanted to make sure that those things were made right before we did the anointing. And so I did do that. I had the anointing and made right with the things that need to be right, with the people that need to be right. It was really just a really good experience to go through and to have that anointing done. But before I had the biopsy, which was scheduled for July of 22 of last year, 25, I wanted to do another PSA. When we did one on July 10th, it was 11.06, so it's going around. To me, I was supposed to go the other direction, but I thought, well, God can work miracles, and that's what I wanted to happen. It didn't work quite that way. I think he wanted me to go, he didn't necessarily want me to go through this experience, but he allowed me to go through the experience because he knows that there's some lessons that I needed to learn. And so I had the biopsy, and sure enough, my urologist is a woman, and sure enough, she found some things, but she said, good news is it looks like it's pretty much contained within the prostate and didn't spread. So I was very, very happy about that. But she said, I just wanted to do another test. It was called a PET scan because the PET scan would make it more specific of where it was and everything. And when she did the PET scan, it showed, pretty much confirmed what she had said, that it had not spread. It was within the prostate. So at that time, it was my decision, how am I going to how best treat this? Because it was invasive, it was going to metastasize. And since the first time I had cancer, I just had him remove the cancer, and I figured, well, might as well just get this removed as well, just take the whole thing out. But I did consult with several people about it before, some medical professionals, some friends, family. The consensus pretty much was, even among the medical professionals, the best thing to do was just remove it, since it seems to be that it was just contained within the prostate. And I asked my urologist, I says, if this were you, what would you do? She said, I'd do the same thing that you're doing, although she couldn't be, because, of course, women don't have prostates. So that made me feel pretty good. I also called and consulted with a nurse practitioner, McDaniel's son-in-law, and talked to him for quite a while about it. And he talked to me about the ramifications and the consequences. And but he said if it were him, he'd probably go through it and have it removed as well. So I had one more PSA done in September 29. I said, urologist, let's just do one more. You know, we've been praying about this. And so, yeah, it was 11.59. So it had gone from 8.13 to 11.59 in less than a year. So the surgery was scheduled for October 6th. It was a 4-hour surgery. It went well. As what the urologist said, it all went well. And the only thing I remember was she came and asked me when I was in recovery how I was doing. I says, I think I'd be doing a lot better if you hadn't removed the prostate. And she says, I think you ought to put it back. And she says, now you know I can't do that. And I says, well, I'm just kind of joking, pulling your chain. So anyway, that's what we did. On the night, when I went home the next day, the 7th, went home with a catheter. It said, come back 9 days and we'll remove the catheter and you should be good to go. Okay, I could do that. So went back on October 15th, had the catheter removed, and little did I know, they had taken my blood work. I went back to double check. They had taken my blood work right about the time I had the prostate surgery and everything. my sodium was a little low, but it wasn't that low. It was like 130, and it should be about 135, 136 minimum. But on the 16th, the day after she removed the catheter, and she had told me on the 15th that I didn't look the same as I had a couple weeks before. She said, "You're not the same person." And so she was, I could tell there was a little bit of concern in her voice. On the 16th, I ended up falling. I fell first in the shower, then I fell later on in the evening. I was talking to my sister on the phone, who was a nurse, and she said, "You need to go to ER." And Jason was also texting me, and he was saying, "You need to go to ER," because he was talking to my niece, who's a pathologist in Missouri, and they were talking back and forth. Said, "You need to go to ER." And so I called 911, and Debbie didn't even know I'd called 911. She's right there in the house with me. Ambulance shows up. She said, "Did you call them?" I said, "Yeah, I called them because they told me I need to go to the hospital." So I went to the hospital, and I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know a lot about what happened from that time until basically even that week before. I don't remember a lot from about the 7th till about the 23rd of October. I don't remember a lot. The anesthesia was not good to me. You know, some people could handle it, but as we get older, it's not too easy for us to go through it. And I have a friend who just lost his dad, also had prostate problems, and the anesthesia pretty much did him in. He says if he hadn't had to go through that, he probably would still be alive today. So I ended up in the emergency room, and like I said, I don't remember everything. I know I woke up, but I think I had an NG tube in my nose. Anyone ever had that done to them before? It's where they put something down your nose all the way into your stomach. Not a pleasant feeling. I see Tammy over there agreeing with me. It's a terrible feeling. And over here too, you can't drink, you can't eat, because everything goes through that tube. And then they measure everything that goes through that tube. Can't even drink water. And, you know, I think I had it for, I don't know, I think it was 4 or 5 days. Some of you guys know better than I, because some of you came to visit me. And it was just a terrible thing. And there's a black, icky substance coming out. And don't know for sure what that was, even to this day. But it was something. And I'll tell you what. The other thing they did is they put a drain in me in this side, because after the surgery I was leaking urine out my side. My shirt would actually be wet on the side, and so they put a drain in my side. And so I went home on the 23rd. I actually thought I was being a guinea pig. I actually thought there was a conspiracy theory against me during that time, because that anesthesia was just playing with my brain. I could not think right. I could not talk straight. The one thing I do remember, I remember some visitors coming, and I remember who most of them were. And I remember that people were praying for me, because they had said before the fact that they were going to be praying for me. And so I clung to those things. And, you know, there's something to be said about prayer and faith. I actually prayed with the urologist before she did the surgery. I prayed with her. We grabbed her hands and we prayed. You know, I prayed. I said, you know, you be with her. I let her know that you're the Lord's instrument. You know, your hands are an instrument of the Lord, and you're being used to help him heal. And it wasn't the only time I prayed with her. I prayed with her some other times too, and I prayed with other people there as well. So when they pulled that NG tube out, you know, they just grab hold of it and pull it out of you. I mean, it's like, you feel like your innards are coming out with it pretty much. But I'll tell you what, when I drank that first glass of water after they pulled that out, oh, was that heavenly. That was just awesome to be able to have that glass of water. So they kept running these tests and doing these things, and finally they wanted to do an endoscopy, and I said, no, I don't need to have that. I don't want it done. And I had this whole crew of doctors that would come every day because they got all these interns that are learning and all this kind of stuff. I can't even tell you the names of half of them, or probably 3/4 of them. I know a few, but I just look at my bill and I says, who's that? But it's someone that had come in and see me. So it was, and the urologist came to see me once there at a time. She wondered what had happened to me and everything, but my sodium had dropped. My electrolytes had gotten way out of whack, and that's one of the reasons why I fell a couple times, and my sodium had dropped down to about, they told me it was 109. I looked at the test, it looked like it was 111. I was looking at my chart, but anyway, close enough. It was bad anyway. It was down to the place where you could risk having a seizure or, even death. And so they had gotten it back up. On the 23rd, I just asked to go home. I said, I don't want to be here anymore. So I went home with a catheter and a drain tube in my side. Well, a week later, I still wasn't feeling right. And on Larissa's birthday, which is the 31st of October, I went back into the hospital. Well, they determined at that point in time that and I think they probably had before the fact, that there had been damage to the bladder during the surgery, and maybe even the falls could have hurt it, damaged it as well. They determined that there had been damage, and so they put another drain tube in on this side, so I had 2 of them now in the front. And then they said, you're going to need nephrostomy drains. You know what a nephrostomy drain is, anyone? John does. John knows what a nephrostomy drain is. Nephrostomy drain, they put it into your kidney, and that becomes, and hooks the bags on your legs, and that becomes your bladder. So the purpose of it is help your bladder to heal, okay? I ended up having those for about 18 weeks within me. And it's not something that they put you all the way under for either, because you need to be alert so they can talk to you, okay? They went to their IVR department, and this was a Monday, I think. Yeah, it was a Monday. And the IVR says, we can't do it. We can't put them in. And they were getting frustrated because they were pretty sure that I needed to have them. And so they were on the phone to University of Michigan. They were trying to get it so I'd be transferred to University of Michigan. And well, insurance denied that. So the next day, on Tuesday, there was Dr. Daly. Dr. Daly came in. He wasn't in on Monday when the IVR department said they weren't able to do it. And the reason why they weren't able to do it, the one kidney wasn't swollen like it needed to be in order to get the drain in. But he said he would like to try. And so they came and get me when Michael and Debbie had gone home because they were sure I was going to be going to the University of Michigan, and they had packed some clothes, that sort of thing. And so they were gone. They came and got me. They took me down to the IVR department. They came back to visit me. It was about just before we had meetings going on at the church, and they wanted to go to the meeting. They were going to see me before the fact. Well, they didn't realize that I'd be taken down there, and I was down there from about 2:30, and I think it was more about 8:30 when I came back to the room. But while they were putting them in, I'm laying on my stomach on this cold table, And I was really glad I'd memorized the book of John, because I'm reciting chapters in the book of John while they're doing this, and it's not pleasant laying on your stomach and having them probing your back. Believe me, even though they sedated you, you could still feel pressure and things going on, and it was not a pleasant experience. They went into the left kidney first because that was the problem one, and they couldn't get in. And so then they transferred over to the right side. They went to the right side, got the right one in, and that went in okay. Then before they did this though, I talked to the guy that was Dr. Daly, and I said to him, you know, I don't have a lot of confidence in your department right now. I said, they said that you couldn't do it. Now you come in today and you said you'd like to try. You know, that he had done several of them. And he showed me the pictures of why they felt it was going to be complicated, and one reason was because of the kidney not being swollen. And so I said, well, it has to be done, and I can't be transferred. I says, so I'm going to put my faith in you, doctor, but we're going to pray about it first. And so we prayed. I prayed with them. God would use them, let them know that I wasn't real happy with the department. And he said, well, we don't have to do it. I said, yeah, you do, because I can't go anywhere else at this point. And so, like I said, he went in first to the left, couldn't get in, went into the right, got in. Then he says, now we got the right one in. Do you want us to do the other? I said, the way I understand it, you have to have two of them in order for it to be, you know, the best, successful. I said, so yeah, you need to go back and try again. And so he went back in. And they were able to get in the second time. Well, the next day, the urologist come in. There was a team that were working together, my urologist and there was another gentleman. And they came in, and they were just so happy. And I said, well, let's pray again. And so we prayed again. And we prayed more than once. And but that time when I was in the hospital, they went in on November 4th, I think it was. And I left on the 8th. But that time I was more aware of what was going on. And at nighttime, I'd wake up and the nurses would come in, and I got to talk with them and learn about them and learn about their lives and their everyday lives. And I actually got to pray with many people. And, you know, it just turned what could be a very trying experience into a pleasant experience. I didn't have pain. Discomfort, yes. Pain, no. And, you know, it was difficult because now I've got 4 drain bags of catheter, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and catheter. And so pretty much I could not do anything without the aid of nurses or somebody. If they wanted me to walk or anything, pretty much they had to be with me. They wanted me to try going to the bathroom. They had to be with me because I couldn't, you know, I was pretty much encumbered. And so I learned a lot about a lot of people, and there are some very precious people that are working in that hospital as nurses and aides. And the one lady was only 21 years old. Another one, she was 32. She had 5 children. The oldest was 20. She had married an older gentleman, had kids. Her youngest was 5. And, you know, I asked her if I could pray with her, and I did. And all of the ladies and gentlemen that I prayed with, they all appreciate it. They all thank me. And I felt in a way I was caregiven sometimes because they all thanked me. And a little girl that was cleaning my room, her name was Diamond. She was just really a sweet girl. And she actually lives over here at Riverside or Hager Shore. I don't know if she still does or not. But I invited her to come to the meetings and said she was going to try them, but she never did. So I didn't chastise her, but she was just a really sweet girl. And prayed with her, and I had her pray with me. I said, now you pray this time. And so she did. And so that was good. So on November 8th, then I went home. And for the next month, pretty much till December 2nd, I was encumbered with 4 bags and a catheter, and I didn't go very far, but I'd get stir crazy just being in the house. So when I go out, I had these really baggy pajama-type pants. I put those on because that'd be the only pants that would fit over all those bags and everything. So now when I go into the store and I see people where I think are wearing their pajamas, I have a different feeling about it than what I used to. I says, well, you know, I don't know what they're going through, and I don't know why they're wearing them. I'm not going to judge them. You know, maybe they got something that, you know, I probably think otherwise, but, you know, I'm not going to, it doesn't always look the best. I know I didn't either, but it sure was nice to get out and walk. I could hold onto the shopping cart, and as Debbie was buying groceries or something like that, and so it just gave me something to do to be mobile. But on December 2nd, when they did a catheter exchange, they went in and they pulled the 2 front drain tubes because they weren't producing anything anymore. So, you know, there was 40% of my encumbrances gone, which was really good. Now I'm feeling a little bit freer because the one urologist had introduced me to these pants you could buy on the internet that had pockets where you could throw the bags in. You know, you pretty much didn't even know you had them. Well, you did, but other people wouldn't know. And so that allowed me a little bit more freedom. Then I felt more comfortable coming to church and everything when I could wear those. But that's not the end. First time when I had cancer back in '98, I didn't tell you this, I ended up back in the hospital 2 days later because I had a blood clot in my lung. I'd actually had the blood clot in my lung when they were doing the surgery, but they'd never done a chest x-ray. If they'd done a chest x-ray, my surgery probably would have been delayed then. But so a couple days before Christmas, I told Debbie, I said, we need to go back in. I think I've got a blood clot in my lung. And so she takes me back into the hospital. We went to ER. ER became a friend of mine. I was in there about 4 different times, I think, during that time. Went back in, and they did ultrasound on my legs, sure enough. I had blood clots in both legs. Then they did a thing on x-rays up here, had them in both lungs as well. So then they put me on the heparin to try and get them dissolved. So anyway, I had for the cardiologist that was looking at me, we had a discussion because I was supposed to have a catheter exchange. You're supposed to have them exchanged about every 4 weeks, and I had one coming up. And you have to be really careful with those because it could go septic on you if they don't do things properly. And the cardiologist says, I can't approve this. And I says, well, I got to have it done. So urologist, we went ahead and we had it done. And it was successful. We prayed about it, but you know, it was done. But the doctor had put me on Eliquis before I'd left. This happened after I'd checked out of the hospital. I had to go back for the catheter exchange. And so I was on the Eliquis, still I'm on it. My cardiologist now, the one that I have, he says he doesn't want me on it forever. He says it's not meant to be on forever. It's only meant until you get the blood clots out of your body. Because your body removes the blood clots. The blood thinner doesn't do it. It just makes your blood easier so it doesn't clot as readily. And so so we had that out. And then, now that I'm out of the hospital, they wanted me to go, the urologist wanted me to go to U of M because they were thinking I was going to have surgery on my bladder to get it repaired. And so they said, we're really not equipped to do it here in St. Joe. So they referred me to University of Michigan. I drove up, we went there, and we were about 20 minutes away, and University of Michigan called me. By the way, the person that they put you with doesn't know how to do this, so we need to reschedule. So we got there, we were like 20 minutes away, and we turned, I said, Dave Rudy had taken us up that day, and turn around and go back. They said they put me with the wrong person. It's not going to be any good to be there. So we rescheduled it for January. So we went up in January, and the urologist that I met, she said typically the bladders will heal on their own. She said, but it takes time, and you have to go through several catheter exchanges and that sort of thing before it'd be healed. But I would like you to get a CT cystogram. I guess that's what it's called, CT cystogram. And what they do is they go in and they fill your bladder with fluid, and they do it first. They take a bunch of pictures without doing it. Then they run the fluid in, and they take a bunch more pictures. And this was in January when I had that done. No, it was in February. It was in February when I had it done. January is when I had the initial appointment with her. And so after the CT cystogram, the urologist calls me the next day, and she says, we feel that your bladder is healed sufficiently enough that you could have the drains removed from your back and the catheter removed. So I was scheduled to have that done the 25th of February, I think, and this was on the 19th. So I went on the 25th, and urologist, she comes in and she says, I want you to know I think a miracle has happened. And I said, we did pray about it. And I said, and we prayed it. She said, I was not expecting you to be this far along until June. So we were very, very fortunate. And she said, so she did take the catheter out, but I want to leave the drains in because we'd like to look at the pictures here too. Well, the radiologist that had read the results for the CT cystogram over there at University of Michigan was well thought of. The urologist said everyone uses him a lot because he's very, very good and thorough. And so they sent me the CDs. I sent them to Corwell. They were able to look at them. And on the 13th of March, I had the drains removed. And that was a nice blessing because if you know about those drains, they're a lot like plumbing. They have a little valve on them. It's like a shutoff valve. And when it's in a shutoff mode, it's perpendicular to the drain. The drain goes like this, and it's perpendicular like this. When you're sitting on the toilet and that catches and you jump and you get off the seat, it's not a very comfortable feeling because it pulls on those drains. I learned very fast to make sure that I watch those really good. And so I had a home visiting nurse. She kept coming about once a week or every other week. She would come in, and she was non-attending SDA, I guess that's the best way to put it. And so when she'd come, we'd have prayer with her, and during the course of this, she ended up switching jobs. So she went to charge of nursing at a nursing home or something like that. So I tried to reach out to her because she wanted to know how I was progressing. She said she always enjoyed coming to our house, and she liked to talk with Debbie and myself. And so we this thing's not very funny today. So we so she got released, and so she wasn't with us anymore. And now it's basically just physical therapy that I'm doing, and the Lord's been really good to me. And you know, that second week I was in the hospital, many nights I spent pleading with the Lord. I said, Lord, if you want me to go, I'm okay with it. But you know, there's a lot of work to be done. I'd like to be one of the ones to help finish it. I also would like to be there for my family. But if you want me to go to rest, I'm okay. So I says, it's in your hands. So here I stand today. And what I did learn through this experience, a few weeks ago I heard one of our little ones use a phrase that was not very becoming, a description of people. And I got to thinking about that song that we used to sing as little children, and I don't know if they still sing it or not. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little lips, what you say, or mouth, what you say. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. I think we as adults could take that too, because I think many times, that's one reason why I chose the scripture that I did today. I think we all need to take that to heart. We do need to love one another as Jesus loved us. And how did Jesus love us? Enough to die for us on the cross, each and every one of us. And each and every one of the people that are out there that we think are unlovable, Jesus died for them too. I want you to know that I love each and every one of you very much. And if I say something that sounds like I'm ridiculing or chasing you or something that comes from the Bible or perhaps spirit of prophecy, please know that I love you and I want you to be in heaven. I try not to, because, you know, we all have our problems. I have mine too. And I would hope that if you guys see me doing something that I shouldn't be doing, then you would also say something to me, because that's what we need to be doing. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think we'll turn over to our closing song. I did it in about 45 minutes. Debbie says, is this going to be long? I says, I don't know. I was in the hospital like 21 days. You want a play-by-play of each day? Then yeah, it'll be long. So at this time, I'll invite our song people.